Hello, my name is Danita Benson. I'm recording this presentation for Education 542 Culturally Responsive Teaching. The topic today is creating a community of learners in a classroom of middle school students. The audience is middle school teachers returning at the beginning of the school year, and the purpose for the PD is to create a school culture that moves toward a more culturally responsive school environment. Good morning. My name is Danita Benson. Today's PD will discuss culturally responsive teaching. Specifically, what strategies you, as a teacher, can implement in your classroom to support our diverse students. CRT. The rules are as follows. When I say go, turn over the notepaper in front of you. You are to write continuously for 2 minutes. Your writing utensil cannot leave the paper. If you run out of ideas, you should write, I don't know, until the time ends. The topic is culturally responsive teaching. Write everything you know about culturally responsive teaching. You have 2 minutes. Go. Put your writing utensil down. Turn to your neighbor and share what you have written about your culturally responsive teaching. Decide on one idea per pair to share with the group. Wait 3 minutes. Okay, now I'd like to hear from each pair what ideas you have come up with as far as culturally responsive teaching. Now, let's discuss the ideas that I have written on the whiteboard. We are going to explore the meaning of culturally responsive teaching with a short introduction. Next, we will address strategies that can be implemented in the classroom to foster cultural responsiveness. Specifically, we will discuss how to implement a classroom community of learners. Finally, we will discuss where to begin after today's training session. Let's get started. I'd like to introduce you to Gloria Ladson Billings. Dr. Billings is known for her work in the field of culturally relevant pedagogy and critical race theory. The Dream Keepers, Successful Teachers of African American Children, has contributed significantly to the field of education.
I'm Gloria Ladson Billings, the Kellner Family Distinguished Chair in Urban Education at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. My passion has always been in discovering those teachers who are able to be successful, particularly in situations where people doubt that that success can happen. So my specific work has been focused on those teachers who are successful teachers of African American students. I began studying in 1989 a group of 8 amazing teachers who, despite the odds, despite the resources, were able to produce some amazing, astounding results among African American students. I began calling this work culturally relevant pedagogy. And what I was able to distill from working with these teachers is that they have a laser like focus on 3 things: student learning, or what we now think of as academic achievement, but not just test scores, but a full range of what young people learn. The second thing they focus on is what I would call cultural competence, not learning do's and don'ts about a specific culture, but fully embracing their own culture while acquiring fluency and facility in at least one other culture. And then the third thing that I saw among these teachers is what I sometimes call the so what factor. That is critical consciousness. We teach kids lots of things, but often students will say, why do I have to learn this? What is this important for? And this critical consciousness is designed to help students say, oh, well, now that I can read this, then I can read the newspaper article about this. Or now that I can compute this, I now understand why it is that we're spending this kind of money on these kinds of resources in our community. So those three things, academic achievement or student learning, cultural competence, and critical consciousness, really form the basis of this notion of culturally relevant pedagogy. It's exciting not only from the standpoint of the teachers I began studying in the late 80s, but that I'm seeing this replicated over and over in classrooms, not only throughout the nation, but around the world.
According to the National Education Association, culturally competent teaching is increasingly necessary if educators are to connect with their students. And to connect, educators need to acquire new teaching strategies that match students' way of understanding and interacting with the world. These approaches will help increase student performance as measured by grades and tests, enhance student access to a more rigorous curriculum, and advance student attainment to high school completion and beyond. Culturally responsive teaching is a response to ongoing achievement gaps between African Americans, Caucasians, certain Asian Americans, and Latinos. Banks 2011 believed that the academic achievement of African American students can be increased when teachers have cultural competency in the cultures of their students and design activities which build upon the cultural and logistic strength of students. What immediately comes to mind when you see this photograph? Do you feel like you have to be a magician in your classroom? Your classroom has so many different ethnicities and cultures. You're at a loss on how to engage your students, right? Have you ever given an awesome real world example only to have your students stare blankly at you? I have been there. I thought I had the best lesson plans, the best projects, the best learning activities, and some of them bombed terribly, like really bombed badly. Does this describe your classroom? Then a light bulb went off in my head one day. I was not meeting the needs of my students, only my need for them to excel on the next benchmark test. So, what was the light bulb, you ask? Okay, yes, I realize this may sound cliche. However, it was not in my original classroom. I really thought that students just need to learn the material to pass the test. Okay, take a deep breath with me. Student success is not measured by the score on the test. Wait for it. You hear Miss Dobbins, you hear Dr. McDonald, and all those people at the district and state level telling you something different in your head. Then you're thinking, Miss Benson has lost her marbles. First, I did lose some marbles the other day. Have you folks seen them? Second, Miss Benson is not saying that testing is not important. Miss Benson is simply saying that testing is not the be all to end all. To overcome the many obstacles our students face, we must create communities of learners in our classrooms. So now you're asking, what does that look like and where's the research? Teaching and learning are shaped by cultural influences. Teachers need to develop a cultural understanding and minimize any tensions that may arise in their classroom in order to ensure their students are successful at school and at home. They can do so by diversifying their techniques and resources, and by establishing continuity between the modus operandi of ethnic groups and school cultures in teaching and learning. Mindset. This mindset starts with the teacher's willingness to learn about their students' culture. Think about that for just a minute. Teachers need to educate themselves about their students' culture and to accompany this knowledge with the skills that help students dismantle the status quo. I want you to try a new activity to reach and create a community of learners. During the beginning of each class, begin with, quote, good news, end quote. An activity that encourages students to share their positive experiences with classmates. Students can talk about family matters, relationship issues, or even altercations with other teachers. Students must feel comfortable in our classrooms so that they are willing to take academic risk or discuss controversial topics. Now, you are going to practice this strategy with the 4 people sitting at your table. We are going to rotate groups so that you will have an opportunity to meet everyone in the classroom. As you practice this strategy, I will walk around the room to help facilitate the discussion. So now you're going to ask me, where do I go from here? So here are some prompts that will help you. Talk about family matters. So, what's your name? Maybe the person beside you doesn't know your name. Are you married? Are you single? Do you have children? Now, let's delve a little bit deeper. Let's talk about classroom issues. How did you solve an issue with a student? What what do you know about culturally responsive teaching? Or better yet, what is a strategy you use in your classroom to create a community of learners? Or maybe we should talk about collaborating with teachers. How have you problem solved when you have issues with someone else? And what have you learned from watching another teacher? Okay. So your time begins now. You will have 10 minutes to experience the good news in each group. Okay, rotate to the next group. Okay, please return to your seat. Now that you've had a chance to experience the good news activity, how do you think you can implement this strategy in your classroom? What did you find difficult about the good news activity? All right, I've given you a new strategy that I would like for you to try in your classroom this year. But it doesn't have to be for the entire year, it can be just for a quarter. But that is my challenge to you. On the table in front of you are two articles: Navigating the Journey to Culturally Responsive Teaching, Lessons from the Success and Struggles of One First Year Black Female Teacher of Black Students in an Urban School, and Is Good Teaching Culturally Responsive? I would like for you to read the articles and reflect about how you can create a community of learners in your classroom using the culturally responsive approach. Then I challenge you to try the good news activity in your classroom using pairs of two students for 2 to 3 minutes per class for one quarter. Then we'll come back at next month's PD session, and I'd like to take just a couple of minutes to get your feedback about what you learned by completing this activity in your classroom. Thanks again. My name is Danita Benson, and I appreciate you listening to the PD today.